Hello, and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and today we are continuing our talk on construction in Colorado. It's a big deal these days with lots of people moving in. We got lots of buildings going up. It's very exciting. But before we get to that, and before I introduce our guest, I want to just reiterate to our audience to please be sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out every Tuesday. And check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. And be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with my two guests here. I have Craig Watts. He is the principal and vice president at MKK Consulting Engineers, as well as the American Council of Engineering Companies in Colorado president.
Right.
So welcome, Craig. How are you?
Well, thank you, Alex. I'm doing really well today.
Fantastic. Good to hear. And I also have with me Dr. Greg Kingsley. He is a structural engineer and CEO of KL&A Inc. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Alex.
Yes. So welcome on this hot afternoon into the studios here. I'm going to have you each talk a little bit about your backgrounds, and we're eventually going to find out why engineering is so important into construction if it wasn't already a little bit clear, right? So Craig, if you would start us off giving us a little bit of your background and
Sure.
Why construction, why engineering, right?
Okay. Well, originally I grew up in Wyoming, went to the University of Wyoming and got a architectural engineering degree there. I've been fascinated with buildings all my life. I mean, so just seeing how they are created from the ground up and stuff like that. So I tried to gravitate to that, and engineering was the natural path for me. Once I got my degree, came down here, I was fortunate enough to be hired by MKK, and they've, over the last 26 years, have given me a really good opportunities for growth and advancement. So it's made it very special as far as being an engineer here in Colorado. My background, most of the days, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. Okay. So I design everything inside the building that the architect doesn't, and my buddy here structurally holds up the building.
Oh.
so all of the comfort, the creature comfort that goes into a building, heating, cooling, those kind of things is what we do. Energy conservation and stuff like that. Oh. Mostly for what I do is we design a lot of museums. So we did the Colorado History Museum, the Denver Art Museum. Yes. We've done a couple of those around the state.
Those are my favorite hangouts. I just have to let you know, I thoroughly enjoy just going to the art museum on a Saturday afternoon.
Right.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's my favorite place. And so, Dr. Greg Kingsley, let's hear a little bit about your background and why engineering for you.
Sure. We actually have a lot in common, Craig and I. I actually started not in Wyoming, but in Colorado. I moved here from Virginia and studied also architectural engineering at CU in Boulder. And I was very excited about getting into design and so on, but then the course of events kind of got me in with a bunch of egghead researchers, and I started studying seismic design, and kind of caught a bug, and I went to UC San Diego to get my PhD, where I shook a 5-story full-scale building down inside a lab, which was tons of fun, and then I came back to Colorado thinking that I might continue in the egghead realm, and then I just thought, you know, I need to build buildings, and I hooked up with an old friend of mine, and we started this company back in 1994. We and some other folks, not just us.
Yes.
And it's just been fantastic ever since. As Craig pointed out, we kind of do the bones of the structure, and it's been a wild ride, gone from a few of us to 80 of us now, and we also like doing museums. Frankly, that's our favorite thing.
Yeah.
So those are the fun projects.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like you both have had an outstanding career so far, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're the president of American Council of Engineering Companies. I'm going to go ahead and start referring to it as ACEC from now on.
Great.
It's a mouthful. So how did you become the president there?
Well, it was kind of interesting in our company. It's a history in our company to be involved in that society in our business. And I just got tapped on the shoulder one day and said, "You're coming with me."
So most people end up in those situations,
Like,
right?
where am I going? It's like, I have to design, it's like, but once I started to get inside of ACEC and understand the value of what it was, I've really enjoyed it, and it's just been very rewarding. I've been doing it for probably the last 15 years.
Okay.
I started on the membership committee and then moved into some other committees, that joint committees for the construction industry, which has contractors, architects, and engineers trying to get together and work through the difficulties of our industry. And then I was lucky enough to be able to get on the board and ride the chairs up to president. So
fantastic. And now you are also a member of ACEC, are you not?
I'm a member, and
Okay.
my business partner Brant is on the board as well.
Okay.
And we've been affiliated with ACEC for a long time for insurance, benefits. We do a lot of our hiring and recruiting through ACEC's
Right.
website. So pretty continual involvement with them for a long time.
Yeah, and we've had some shows on with ACEC back in March, and so I hear great things about
Right.
what a good organization they are, especially for you guys. But let's talk a little bit the overall role of design engineers in the design and construction process on the vertical side. So how has that evolved over the past 10 years?
Greg?
It's evolved a ton. So the role of a structural engineer, as Craig alluded to earlier, is really to do the bones of the building, to keep the building standing, and it's very it's at its most basic. It sounds simple enough, but it's changed really dramatically over the last 10 years. Certainly. It wasn't that long ago that we were drawing with pencils, okay? But at the beginning of when our company started, we were drawing 2D drawings in CAD. But now all of our drawings are done in full 3D models, BIM modeling, building information modeling, so that each element that goes into the model has embedded information in it, what's the size of the beams, what's the concrete made of, how much reinforcing is in it, and so on. It's really remarkable technology, and now I've got a whole slew of people that know a whole lot more than I do about how to put together 3D models.
Well, I think he's kind of selling himself short, because when I said I fell in love with buildings,
Yeah.
one of the parts of the building was that structure.
Yeah.
I mean, just a massive part of it. And before, they used to hide it all the time. But now it's coming back to where they're exposing all the members that
true.
Greg and his company designed. So it becomes part of that experience as you come into the building, instead of just holding the building.
Yeah. Well, actually, with that in mind, that's actually one of the most rewarding aspects of that kind of work, is that you work hand in hand with the architect, right? So if what you're doing is going to show and be a big showpiece of what they're doing, you really flange up with them, and we're really kind of, I use the Italian word simpatico because it's the one that works with the designers, and so it really helps light the creative fires from the engineering side. It's really a great thing.
Yeah, well, and you're looking at these buildings, right? And they're both aesthetically and structurally necessary, right? It's nice to see that structure that's holding the building together is also aesthetically pleasing for patrons of the buildings.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is the most critical role design engineers play in the process?
Well, I think that for us, as far as consulting engineers, I think it's that third party aspect of it. It says we don't own the building, so everything that we do is for the betterment of that project. We don't sell product. We don't do anything like that. So we are that independent thought of saying, hey, what is best for this project, this building, this facility or whatever. We don't make decisions on money. We don't make obviously we have to watch the budget and everything, but still it's a better what is best for that project. And so what I think our role is that to be able to give the owners, the architects, our other partners in this, the right information so they can make informed decisions. As far as how the building will go together and how it's going to perform.
That's really true, and in fact, the state charges us with a duty to sort of protect the life, health, safety of the occupants of the buildings and so on. And so they see that as a critical part of the process, to have this sort of third party sitting at the table whose job is just to make sure that the building is the right building and it's doing what it's supposed to do and protecting the people inside of it, you know, and the main motivation is just to do the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far as our standpoint, you know, and all the environmental stuff, making sure that they have clean air, you know, and their lighting is well done, and they have fresh air that's circulating through there, and we're not giving off products with VOCs and stuff like that. So that's another part of that life safety and protection of the public.
I was just going to say that, as Craig said earlier, that, you know, for structural engineering, the simplest definition is you don't want the building to fall down, right? But it's really a great deal more involved than that. But he alluded to the fact that being at the table and getting the right information to the right people, so you have really deep knowledge of how buildings go together, and that's actually the funner, more interesting, engaging role, is to just connect people with the right information and pull a complicated process together.
That's certainly something I've never even considered in a building, right? There is a lot that goes into that, and you do have to think about safety, right? Which, you know, I'm just assuming every building I step into is perfectly safe.
Everybody does.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so what an interesting light you're bringing to the table here. At what point in your careers, and this is posed to both of you, whoever wants to answer first, did you feel like you had a firm grasp on what you were doing, that this was where you were meant to be, and that you know that you needed to make these connections for people?
Those are two different things. The firm grasp part I hope to get in a couple of years. and this is where I was meant to be. Probably even as I entered college, I was an unusual person, and I knew what I wanted to do, and it lit my fire from day one. So and also that the move, when I moved from the academic world and the research world into really building stuff, that was like I'll never turn back. It was very, very clear.
The first time you see a building come up out of the ground, and it's like, you know, and you're part of it. It's like when we talk about museums, or we talk about like the history museum, every fourth grader in Colorado goes to that museum, and I went there with my kids, right? You know, and the things, and so that's a legacy that you can say to your kids or your family. So this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know, you show this thing it's lasting.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's nothing like it. Not many people get to say something like that. It's really.
I'm sure it's very rewarding work.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. It is.
So what are some of the great challenges that you as engineers are facing in the industry right now?
You know,
there's a long list of these, so hopefully.
Please, we have time. But yeah, give me your laundry list.
Well,
I'll take it.
The first one is that we don't have time, right? It's a very busy time, and that with the sort of advancement of computer tools and so on, there's become an increasing expectation to deliver designs faster and faster and faster. And so one of the challenges is to just hit the schedules and do the work that you need to do, and draw things to the detail that you need to draw them, and talk to all the people you need to talk to, and get that all done in a very short period of time.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine you mentioned that you now have 3D and everything's very digitalized, and you can do it quicker, right? So there's even more time pressure on top of that because you can do it quicker.
That's right.
Yeah, they want it even more so, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, get an inch, take a mile.
Let alone that, you know, they can make changes to the building. So our architectural buddies can go there and make changes to the building much quicker.
Yeah.
So we're going, okay, when are you going to stop doing so we can finish our design, you know.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, walk me a little bit through that, if you don't mind, an example there of how that, so I would imagine that architects continually are trying to improve, and how does that specifically impact your work?
Well, I think the longer you do it, the longer you're in this process, you start to understand where the project is going. You know, I mean, so, or if you've worked with your fellow architects and contractors before, so you know how they deliver their product. And so it's a lot easier to do that than with someone brand new that you don't know that's come in maybe out of state or something like that. But more than that, it's basically the time that we have to think through the problem. That's what we are. We solve problems. And so if you just rush, you're probably not getting the best answer.
Okay.
So you need to just sit back and take time. And that's one of the things that I think you probably teach your younger engineers as we do. It's like, just don't all of a sudden just jump into it.
Yeah.
Step back, look at the bigger picture, figure out what's the best way to go through it, then start to analyze, those paths.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, it's really true. And the process is much less linear than you might assume if you've never been involved in it, right? So you might think that an architect comes up with an idea of what a plan should look like and what the building should look like and so on, and then just sort of maybe hand it to the engineers and say, how do I make this stand up? But in fact, what it looks like and what the plan looks like and so on is in a state of constant evolution, right? And in fact, we like to be there very early on. So you have to roll with the changes, and so the engineering process has a lot more to do, as Craig inferred, with knowing the people, having relationships with people, understanding how they think, and getting to what they really want to achieve versus what they think they want to achieve, right? And so
being flexible,
and
also.
being flexible, yeah. So
being very flexible with it, because it does take them time to think through it, and they're building something that's lasting for 50, 60, 70 years.
Right.
So we always ask them, it's like, do you really want to rush through this? I mean, this is going to be standing for this long. Let's do it right. Let's make sure that when we step back from it and we're done, that we can be proud of it.
You mentioned the people here and working. Do you have more recurring versus new clientele? As far as with your architects?
Yes, it's definitely a relationship-based profession.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would say that although those best relationships are ones that have been honed after years and years and years. We've got some clients that have worked with us exclusively for 24 years, and we know exactly how they tick and vice versa. And it's just pure pleasure to go through that process. And then there's always new clients and so on, and so the business does come mostly from repeat business and relationships that you've built over time.
Yeah.
At least for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the other challenges we have in our industry is resources. I mean, as Denver and the metro area in Colorado is growing, the opportunities that we have in front of us are very great, but getting the right people to work on the projects with us, I mean, so to hire and people coming into our industry. I was talking to Greg earlier before we came on that the history of our industry back in the 50s, when consulting engineers really started to be breaking off from contractors, and before it was you were embedded with them, in their company.
Yeah.
So now we've started our own companies and we're independent. It's the evolution of that has really come along to. Now we have the challenge of getting people into that industry.
Yeah.
And the last 10 years in our industry, all the engineers that are coming out, they're being pulled between construction and design, and also now software, all of the electrical games that are coming out, all of that. So the resources that are coming out of the colleges are being spread thinner. So we're being challenged, to find the right people to come into our industry. So we're starting to be creative and go into the schools, starting to teach in the schools, starting to, to get them to come this way.
It's definitely a long game.
Yes,
that process.
Yeah.
I'd like to say engineers aren't a meat product. We don't just,
You're not?
we don't just need to, we've got a big job, let's get some more meat and put it in, and that job's over, we'll get rid of that meat and put some more in later on.
Right.
In fact, there's really long-term relationships you build with your staff in the same way you do with your clients, and then the training takes a very long time. It's an apprenticeship model, our business. So it means bringing people in and then coaching them and teaching them and mentoring them to teach them all the sort of nonlinear things that you learn in the business that you didn't learn in school, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a huge investment, and it takes a long time. So keeping those people on board is one thing, but in a time like this when you need suddenly, I could have easily 10 more people in my company, but you don't just plug 10 people in and expect them. Even if you could find, first you can't find them, but even if you could find them, it's not an easy thing to do. So the profession requires some nurturing and some time as well.
Maceration and
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, you mentioned that you're trying to get into the schools here. Is there a pitch at all that you want to offer them? Here's what I need from you. Here's the students that I need from you. Can you please teach them this?
I need your A team. Yeah. So actually, that's interesting. That's one of the ways that we recruit, as we'll go into universities and we'll give seminars, and it's and half of it is we work on a lot of really kind of sexy projects that get kids really excited, and so I get them all whipped up into a frenzy about that, and then I start talking about what it really takes to be an engineer, and if you kind of have what it takes to work for us, and usually that's really it's a really fun thing to do.
I think it's one thing if they're exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trying to explain to them what they'll be doing, it's like, are you designing? Am I going to do a lot of calculations and stuff like that? But if you see the building and the process, or go to meetings, that's really what we do with our interns, is make sure that they are exposed to every part of our industry. So then they can make a good decision on and say, that is really what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, right, and you don't want somebody that's not going to be a good fit for you. If you've got someone that thinks that they want to do this thing but really they don't have the passion, it's not going to be a good fit for either of you in the long run.
I would say that in general, if you're looking for some broad advice for students, I would say that if you have that you need the passion in order to survive this industry. That sounds kind of awful, but the fact is it's a really hard job, and you put in a lot of long days. And those of us that love it like we do, I could not imagine doing anything else. It's that satisfying to me. I really can't. But it's hard. Yeah. And so it's not the thing you go in just because you need a job. You need to feel that fire when you see a building going up. Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I can't imagine how rewarding it is to see something that you've been an integral part of, and now it's all these people occupy it.
I can never forget the contractor who overheard me on one of my very first jobs. I went, "Wow, it looks just like I drew it."
Good.
That's rare.
He was like, "Duh."
Yes, that was the idea here.
Yeah, that's the point.
Wow, it does look like it.
Yeah,
that's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
You mentioned you had some sexy projects. Do you mind letting us in on a little bit of that?
Oh, sure. Well, since we were on a museum theme, I'll name two of them. One of the funnest projects I've done in a while is the Aspen Art Museum. It's a museum in the middle of downtown Aspen. It was designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning Japanese architect, Shigeru Ban, and it involved a number of lots of innovative engineering things because the architectural demands were pretty high. But the most visible and the most fun for me was an unprecedented three-dimensional wood space frame that holds up the roof. Nothing like it's ever been built before, and that was loads of fun. And we have another museum that's in construction that you can see from the highway in Colorado Springs as you drive by. It's just east of the highway. It's the new U.S. Olympic Museum.
Yeah.
And so it looks like a plane crash on the side of the road at the moment. But it's going to turn into looking like something pretty spectacular. It's just steel frames right now.
Awesome. We are going to have to take a break here. I feel like we're on a roll, so I'm excited to continue this conversation. We get 25 more minutes when we come back from this break. So stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. In the meantime, please be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. Check out ACEC Colorado. It's ACECco.org or .com. You know what? Yeah. Google it.
.org.
Yes. And we'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Craig Watts and Dr. Greg Kingsley. Thank you. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I'm having a fascinating conversation here about construction with Craig Watts and Dr. Greg Kingsley. You guys have been really fascinating so far, and I wanted to be in architecture when I was younger, and then I realized how much was really into it. Which, yeah,
I
you
think we
have
both
to have
wanted
this
to be
passion.
architects to start with.
It's
so-
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then the engineering side of things is just mind blowing, right?
Sure.
Yes.
I would say, well, first of all, I'll tell you that more than half of the people that I interview for positions say that they started out wanting to be an architect,
Right.
and then they kind of redirected in some way. And in my view, I've completely, what do I want to say? I tricked the world, because in my current profession, I probably work on 10 jobs for every one an architect does, just as it, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
The variety of buildings I've got to work on all over the country and in the world and so on is way more than an architect would ever get to work on. And I've got to work with so many different kinds of people, so I think I scored. And
Yeah.
it's
I
the
have to
secret.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is amazing. And we were talking in the last segment about projects, right? You mentioned the Aspen Art
Museum, yeah.
Art Museum, and you mentioned the Olympic Museum in Colorado Springs. And on the break, we had a chance to small mention here for your project that you're doing at a resort in Antigua.
Right.
So congratulations on that. So you can work and be here, but have projects all around the world then.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the world has become very flat to us.
Yes.
Yes. Now, don't encourage any flat earthers, my dear. I have to put my foot down on that. But let's talk a little bit how the overall labor shortage has affected design engineering. I know we mentioned working with the schools, and is that your main source of recruiting top talent? How else are you trying to get these good, passionate employees at your businesses?
Actually, one of our tricks has been since 2006, we've participated in the best engineering firm to work for by the Structural Engineers Association, and we've been in the top 10 in the country since 2006.
Wow.
So a lot of young talent will look to say, well, I want to work for one of the top 10 firms, and so we get a lot of hits from that. That's really been important to us.
Yeah.
Right. I think that the advent of social media has been another way for us to reach out to the industry and let alone recruit, but also have people gravitate towards us because we show what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, before it's like you don't get to see the pictures. You don't get, it's there out there. But now you can start to show the really wonderful, exciting kind of things that you're doing, and then also there's the human aspect of it. We just don't sit in cubes all day. I mean, we actually, I think most of us build our companies around a family.
Yeah.
So it's very important for us to get connected to our employees and make sure that we do fun things outside of work, and then also during work. And we have, many people that have foam guns that are, break up everything.
It's really funny because when you said that, I pictured the Nerf gun that was sitting on the
absolutely.
desk.
I think it's a staple in all engineering
yeah.
firms. But that kind of aspect of showing that we're not just a bunch of people that are crunching numbers and doing things, and we have passion for our and integrity, and also we care about the people that work for us. I mean, we've always thought of that as being our family, our extended family.
Well, you work long days, so I'd imagine you're around them quite a bit. You want people that you want to be around, right?
Well, that's exactly it. You work long days, and you're with each other almost as long as you're with your family at home, and so making that a really engaging and pleasant atmosphere is definitely a goal of ours.
Yeah.
We've come a long way from the pocket protector.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. It's not that anymore.
Not at all, right?
But it's interesting with the evolution of that. I mean, we used to all have to wear ties, and we come in and sit and draw and stuff like that. And now, they always talk about the life work balance, right?
Right.
And it's like it's really not that anymore. It's not a balance; it's a blend. So really, because your kids, if you have young kids or something, they have things going on at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
And so we have flexible hours. So people are coming in at different times of the day because of the technology. They can work from home. They can work, in remote areas and stuff like that. The biggest thing that we've seen in the industry is telecommuting. And so we have a lot of people in our company. There's about 17% of our people are telecommuters.
Wow, that's a lot.
And so we have people in Fort Collins, we have people in Oregon, we have people all over the United States that can work for us.
Yeah.
Because we can go to meeting, we can get on there. We have video conferencing and stuff like that. So that is really expanded where we can actually have people work. Because if you have an employee for any length of time, let's say they moved here, they came here, but they grew up in Minnesota, let's say, Minnesota, well, eventually that tug comes that if they want to be closer to their family. But boy, you've nurtured this employee, and it's like you'd hate to see all that talent just walk out. So how do we make that extension so they can actually, have that life balance, life blending?
The same exact thing has happened to us. We actually have a office in northern Wyoming that was spawned entirely for that reason. That was one of the young men that worked for us grew up there on a ranch. And when he started having kids, he said he wanted to go up and raise his family where he grew up. It was really important to him, and he said, "But I love working for you guys." And we said, "So keep working for us."
We'll make it work.
We'll make it work.
Got to be one of the reasons you guys are in the top firm, right? I'm sure that plays an integral role in that. What about words of wisdom for some kids that are looking to get hired in this field?
Doctor?
Yeah. Well, we already, part of my answer to that, we already addressed a little bit, and that you have to make sure that you're really passionate about what it is. But a little bit more specific, people think they're passionate, but it's also really hard to know what we do, right? So especially for students that are trying to get into it, the best thing you can do by far is to find internships. Right, and I would even spread them out a little bit. I actually just had a wonderful interview the other day, and a woman had interned with a civil engineering firm, and then an architectural firm, and then a structural firm. So she, right from for all 3 summers, and she was able to say, and now I've been able to pick, right, because so I know this is the one I want to do, right. And so that would be probably my number one advice is go try it, go. Spend a summer working it, and most engineering firms have some kind of internship available. Generally, we actually pay for it, unlike a lot of my architect friends. So, and we have, and we love having those people in the company, and they learn a ton, right?
Absolutely. So, yeah, and I'm sure you've got more marketable skills.
Sure, you're absolutely right, Alex. Because when we're looking at people to hire. The first thing we look at is your experience. Even though if they're coming right out of college, if they've actually just spent a summer in a consulting engineering firm, they understand. It's just like you don't know until you get involved in it.
That's right.
You don't really know what's the day-to-day and how to. So they understand how drawings and how projects get to they have their own life. It's like this is what has to happen next, and that kind of, and there's that. Oh, now we have to start over again. We just like you talked about, not linear but circular kind of design. So they don't get frustrated. They understand the process versus, this is really what happens?
Yeah.
It's really funny. You can go to school for 4 to 6 years and still have no idea what happens day to day in an engineering office, right? It has very little to do with what you do in your classes. Those are skills that you need to have, but the workday is completely different.
Yeah.
And so having some insight into that, well, what it does is either it cements whether that's what you really want to do or not, and that's really important.
Is there something that I could say to either one of you in an interview process that you'd be like, I need to hire that girl?
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is play with Legos as a kid.
Yeah.
That's
your key?
Yeah. When they say, I built a lot of models, and big on Legos. I'm like, all right, you're good to go. When
Yeah.
can you start?
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm sensing some sarcasm here.
So,
I'm actually not only half joking.
Okay.
Really, because
Yeah.
because the people that as a kid tried to spend a lot of time putting things together and getting glue on their fingers and trying to follow instructions and I mean, the way we ask people to put buildings together is the same as if you were writing the how to build an airplane model, instructions, right?
Okay.
And if you spend some time, I'm just not making this up.
Right, I believe you.
Fiddling
Yeah.
around, fixing your car, those kind of things that are just inquisitive and I like it when people have done some, even if they spend a summer putting houses together for Habitat for Humanity, right?
Yeah.
That's another, those are the kind of things.
Okay.
so in our industry, consulting engineering,
Yeah.
it's basically entrepreneurial driven. I mean,
Okay.
so really, I'm looking for people that know what they want. I mean, it's like instead of asking me how much do I get paid, is there
You don't want me to ask. You don't want that to be the first thing I say.
no, that's probably not a good starter. But it's like what I want to be doing. If when I hear that coming out of this is what I want. And I've always told the people when I go to colleges and stuff like that, they said, look, when you go to an interview, you are interviewing for your life. I mean, this is what you want to do. And so ask them questions. Don't just sit there and answer their questions. So I like to have people ask us questions
Yeah.
and say, how do I get to where you are?
Yeah. That doesn't intimidate you.
No, not
Okay,
at all.
good.
Not at all. I want them to come and replace me. Honestly, not literally, but it's like I want them to have that passion, like you say,
Yeah.
or that drive. That drive to succeed.
Yeah.
And you can't teach that. And so those we can teach them how to do the engineering part. It's like any other profession. You teach them how to do it. You go to college to learn how to learn, right? And
Yeah. Essentially.
and so after that, I want those people that are hungry, to passion to learn. And if they know what they want, say, look, I want to be an owner. I want to do those kind of things. Those are the ones that we gravitate to.
Okay.
I would back all that up 100%.
Yeah.
Another thing that we also that means a lot to us is not so much the answer to a question, but as you've heard us say, the whole process involves a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration. I think it's the most collaborative industry, in the country, because you've got to deal with architects on one end, contractors on the other end, and the people that are building the building. I mean, people with no education or tons of education and completely different perspectives. So your ability to communicate and to be articulate in your communications and clear, and those things mean a lot because that's what you have to do. You spend a lot of the day with the headset on, not quite this big, talking to people on the phone, right, and communicating.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you said it earlier, Greg. Relationship.
Yes.
Our industry is about relationships. As I tell a lot of our people, it's like the engineering. When they hire us, the engineering's a given. They bought that. Right. They expect us to be able to do this.
Yeah.
What sets us apart, and hopefully that's what differentiates us, is the consulting part. Like we talked about, giving them the right information to make informed decisions so they can have a better building. So that's what sets us hopefully apart from other engineering companies. Because there's a lot of good engineers in our industry. I said, be a consultant. Be a true consultant. Ask the right questions. If you're not getting the right answers, continue to ask them.
You become a trusted advisor, right? And
Okay.
so what you wanted to be is in the position where I'm working on a building and I've got this problem, and automatically I think, I'll bet Craig could say something. I could help me with this, right? And you get him on the phone,
Right.
and you just build that sense of rapport.
Yeah. So I'm going to sum this up. We're looking for passionate, articulate Lego builders.
Indeed, yes.
All right.
There you go.
All right. I like that. So I have to ask a little bit more here about ACEC, right? The American Council of Engineering Companies in Colorado. One more time for the audience
There you
there.
go.
ACEC. So I guess a few off the top of my head questions. Can you join this as an individual, or do you need to be a part of a company
Well, one of the criteria is that you have to have a licensed engineer
Okay.
in your company.
Okay.
So, contractors that don't have engineers in their, PEs, professional engineers, is one of the criteria that you
Okay.
have. Now, you can be an associate to ACEC, and we have vendors that are associates to that. But to be a member company of ACEC, you have to have professional engineers that are licensed actually here in Colorado. For this one, but there's ACEC, in all the 50 states.
That's what I thought.
Right,
Okay, I was
right.
just trying to do a little research before you got here. So you do have to have a licensed engineer
Right.
at least at the company to become a member.
Correct.
Is there an avenue for people that don't have that? Can I come to an event? Are there other ways I could get involved?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When we encourage people to come and be part of ACEC, we have a lot of people. I mean, look at the people that helped us today. I mean, with Julie and stuff like that. We need those kind of people to be part of our association.
Yeah.
So yes, you can definitely come and we'll find something for you to do.
So do you want to talk? I'm actually going to ask Greg on this one. Talk a little bit about how ACEC has benefited you and your company.
Well, one of the things, I mean, there's a number of things, but one thing that's really helpful is that they work on the legislative side to actually help affect laws and legislation that affects our industry. And that's something that most engineers don't naturally do. I mean, we've talked a lot about skill sets today that don't involve calculators, and so just being articulate and being able to speak and communicate. Well, that's one thing, but having the skills and the talent to be able to go up and advocate for the engineering profession. Well, that's something that is that's a pretty far reach for us, and I am so grateful that ACEC does that for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing. When I first started at ACEC, is I didn't understand the power that they have. I mean, as far as just look at the last tax reform bill. I mean, for us as independent company owners, we get taxed. Most of us are S corps or anything like that. So basically, the tax laws, we were getting taxed at like 37%. Right? Well, that tax reform brought it down to 21%. At the first of that tax bill, engineers were not involved in that. We were going to be left out. And then ACEC's national went to Washington, D.C. and talked to the legislators and said, look, we do most of your work.
Yeah.
and so because of that advocacy and because of that connection with legislators and senators and congressmen, we were able to give that to our constituents. And so that's powerful stuff for a small firm. And you got to also realize that the firms in ACEC, you think of like CH Hill or the big behemoth kind of things. The average size of a consulting engineering company is less than 20 people. And that's about the average size around the United States. So we're small, family-owned businesses, and a couple guys get together and they're passionate about that. So they really need that voice. They really need that full-on.
It's not only
help.
the voice, but also the education. What Craig is talking about was a surprise to you. It was a surprise to me, and I learned it through ACEC because they turned around and said, "Hey guys, this is going on.
Right.
Help us out. Help us make some noise, right?" And
Sure.
and it was really important for us.
Right. Yeah, and just lately there was an initiative that was going to come onto the ballot. Fortunately, they decided to not put it on, but it was Initiative 66, which was basically growth control. So it was 1% growth control. And so for our industry and for Colorado, it's very short-sighted. And so we have to get behind that. We go to the contractors, we go to the architects, and we all get together and go, okay, how do we go to legislators and tell them that this is not a good thing, and let's not do this.
And yes, I agree with you. Thankfully, 66 did not go anywhere because that would have stifled a lot of industries in Colorado, I believe, for sure.
And Colorado is just on that cusp of growing up. I mean, and we're going to go through growing pains. And so I think that the frustration with traffic has really driven that home, going, I don't want people coming to our state anymore. It's not that we don't have, space for people. It's how we move them around. It's how we move them around. So it's really a transportation. It's not a people thing.
Okay.
If you look at, I just one little thing, but matter of fact, I think it was your buddy Brant. He showed me a thing of the state of Colorado and then of England, right? And it showed me England, and England has like a third of the acreage that we have in Colorado, and they have 30 million people. In England, we have plenty of space in Colorado for people. Let's just get the transportation and moving them here to there.
Exactly.
It's just interesting to me too that a lot of the problems that Colorado has are engineering problems. As you know, we've been saying we're problem solvers, but issues of getting people from one place to another, this is all, might be the horizontal version of construction, but housing those people, giving them schools, giving them hospitals, getting all that. I mean, so much of it is engineering, right? So being a part of this profession is being a part of those solutions.
Right.
Absolutely. What other benefits do we have? We know we have the legislative side. What else does ACEC bring to the table? Why should my firm join?
Well, I'll tell you what when we talked about earlier about the sizes of these companies, and procuring health care for our employees is a big thing. It's one of the largest things besides the salaries is the cost of health care. And so ACEC has a really, really good healthcare insurance, and you guys actually use it.
We do.
And so that's one of the things is we're a good benefit for a lot of our members that come in. Said, because if you have 8 people, you don't get the rates that when you come to ACEC, we combine everything so that you can get better rates for the employees, and so that's really one of the biggest benefits for just a firm.
That was actually probably the first reason that we joined. Was the healthcare insurance?
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's huge. You're right. It's very expensive. It's tough, and I'm assuming you're still considered small business at this time. Under 100 employees is around about what most people are going with, right?
As we said, though, I mean, the average company is less than 20. A lot of them are 5 and 6, right? So the size of our firm feels gargantuan as engineering companies go, but compared to CH2M Hill or somebody, we're tiny.
Yeah. Can I ask for figures here about what it would have cost you to go with a different?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Right. Well, and you've had it for a while, right?
Yeah, Well, since we started.
24 years.
And I guarantee you, they compare every year. Every year, because lately our healthcare insurance our healthcare system has changed every year.
It has.
So we have Obamacare, and then we have Trump, and then he's trying to do something. So we're looking back and going, how do we deal with this as business owners? And so ACEC is really one of those safe havens for the engineers to use, and so it's been a really big benefit for them.
Yeah.
I think one of the other benefit is that you can actually, like Greg was talking about, you can connect with other engineers, that so you have a community of sometimes you feel like you're on an island.
Yeah, right. You do.
It's like, but now you have a place that said, hey, I don't know how to do that. If like someone comes with an issue that I can't really solve, but I can go over and I can call Greg up and say, I know Greg can do it, or someone else can do it in this industry. So that combination of the engineers and the community.
Lovely. This has been a great conversation, gentlemen. You've enlightened my world here in structural engineering and consulting engineering. So thank you very much for joining me on Connect and Collaborate today. Visit acec-co.org. I got the right URL there for you. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Alex.
Pleasure.